Let John Street tell you what to plant and how to look after them.
The big difference between gardening with flowering shrubs and all other plants is that the shrubs are there to stay. Perhaps not for posterity nowadays, but certainly for 10 years. This means you have to be all the more careful in choosing them, planning where to put them, preparing the ground for them, and planting. There are two ways in which you might want to grow a flowering shrub. You may either have seen something that you like and want to have it in your garden, or you have a place which you think would be suitable for shrubs, and so you go to work accordingly. If you've seen one that you want, then the first thing to do is to find out all about it. Because it's no use at all to put a plant in the shade that likes the sun, or what so often happens, to select a neat little specimen for your rockery, which almost before you look round will grow to 30 feet. It pays dividends to consult the best reference books in your local library. Before you start, either with one shrub or several, you must know whether your soil is acid or whether it contains lime. A simple check is the local vegetation. Silver birches, Scots firs, gorse and bracken indicate an acid soil. Big tall elm trees in the hedgerows, strong oaks, valerian, ivy, dogwood and spindle trees point to a lime soil. Or you can test it yourself with a cheap kit, or have it tested for you. A quick rundown on what you can grow on each goes something like this. On an acid soil, rhododendrons, azaleas, camellias, hardy heathers, ornamental brooms and most of the magnolias. On a lime soil, viburnums, lilacs, flowering cherries and crabs, sisters, some magnolias, and the winter-flowering heathers. Needless to say, that is not a complete list. Now, the great advantage that I have in being able to talk to you, rather than to write for you to read, is that I can emphasize the important points. And the most important of all, one that has been written so often that it is skipped by many readers, is that the preparation of the soil is the whole secret to success in growing flowering shrubs. You must dig it to 2 spits deep for an area of at least 3 feet square. That is 3 feet by 3 feet, not 3 square feet, for each shrub. When you dig, you should work into the bottom spit some good well-rotted manure or compost or leaf mold so that the shrubs have something to feed on. The reason why so many flowering shrubs end up as nothing better than bunches of half-dead twigs is that they are starved. It's quite true, they are easy to grow, but they do repay preparation, and then only need a little care and attention afterwards. Unfortunately, they are so easy to grow that many people think they are the answer to that part of the garden where nothing else does well. This is what happens. A collection of 12 mixed shrubs are bought, they are plonked in and left to fend for themselves, often lingering on rather than growing and thriving. There are many uses for flowering shrubs in the garden. You can have a complete shrub border, you can use them in a mixed border, you can use them as specimen plants on the rock garden, in the herbaceous border, as a specimen on a lawn, or for the very utilitarian purpose of hiding the dustbins or the manhole cover. There are so many that it is hard to choose one for your own garden, and the best way is to have a look around the other gardens and see what is growing well. Also, you can visit your public park and see what they have there, see which plants give a really good show throughout the season. Because this is the thing about flowering shrubs, they do not end with the flowers. Many of them have a beautiful form and lovely foliage, even berries and autumn color and winter bark. Unless you have a garden of several acres, then your flowering shrubs must give you more than one show, not just flower. If you are planning a shrub border on its own, you will have to make a decision as to whether you want one big splash or what you might call a long sprinkle. That's to say, a shrubby potentilla is a compact shrub which carries yellow flowers right through the summer, but it is deciduous and without particular attraction in the winter. At the opposite extreme is a rhododendron, which gives you one glorious burst of color in May or June, then nothing more. Except, of course, good evergreen foliage and something substantial to look at right through the year. A few give you wonderful all-round value. For instance, the variegated cornus has bright silver leaves throughout the summer, and they never seem to become tatty, and then bright red stems in the winter. Incidentally, one of the best uses of flowering shrubs is to give you winter flower. Here's a quick list. The winter sweet, the winter jasmine, the Chinese witch hazel, viburnum fragrans, and any of the winter flowering heathers. From those alone, you will have color and perfume, delicious perfume, from November to April. If you take the trouble to see the shrubs before you buy, rather than selecting them from a catalogue, you will be able to plan so that you have a contrast of form and foliage that will be almost as interesting as the flowers when they are over. If you are on acid soil, you could plant a small group of the common yellow azalea to the back, the old magenta evergreen azalea, which is called aminum, in front of it, and to the side a half-standard flowering cherry of the well-known variety called Kanzan. This would give you a magnificent show in May and afterwards. Bronze green leaves above, light green below. These would turn to bright scarlet in the autumn. And in front of that, evergreen leaves of dark, glossy green. On a soil that contains lime, you could have any of the lilacs at the back, Viburnum burkwoodi with neat rosettes of blush pink buds opening to white scented flowers in front, and a dark red flowering crab as a standard or half-standard above. After the flowers, this group would give you very nearly the same contrast of foliage, but without the autumn colour, although you would be compensated for this by the decorative fruits of the flowering crab. Incidentally, these would also grow on an acid soil. Again, you must remember these are only examples of what you can do. There are a great many more which can be worked out to suit your own soil and conditions. And I must emphasize that with flowering shrubs, it pays to find out which suit your locality and to use them and plan them with imagination. When it comes to planting in your prepared soil, to your prepared plan, the most important thing to remember is never too deep. Only set the plants at the same level they were before. Take out a hole, make sure that it is exactly the right depth, place in the plant, then shovel in some soil, tread it up, more soil, more treading, and then titivate the top. Remember, wet soil is as bad for plants as soil that is frozen, and wind can do as much damage as frost when they are planted. A little stake, even for the smallest shrub, will double its rate of growth in the first year. Of course, it is most important for a standard tree when it should go into the hole before the tree is placed in position. Otherwise, you are apt to find the tree is holding the stake up rather than the other way round. When it comes to care and attention, once the plants have started to grow, there is little to do. But that little must be done if you want to get the most out of your flowering shrubs. Pick off the dead flowers, keep them mulched with peat or leaf mold or compost, but do not dig around the roots. Even hoeing can be harmful to some shrubs. The general rule about pruning deciduous shrubs is that those which flower on the young wood should be cut down hard in the spring, and those that flower on the old wood should be pruned as soon as they have finished flowering. And you could easily say that none of them benefit from the snip-snip of the secateurs that they are so often given at the classic pruning time in March. Evergreens should be left severely alone. These are only the basic rules for growing flowering shrubs. But I am sure if you apply them with your own taste in garden planning and design, you will find that you will be able to create combinations of flower and foliage which will give you more pleasure for less work than any other form of garden plant.
John Street is a grower of repute, and the advice of a good nurseryman is always worth seeking when planning a garden.